intro makes me miss you so much, Cayla. It's been way too long.
I'm literally like tearing up. I'm like, I haven't seen that in so long. Like,
I
I have the most
know.
FOMO, like, or
Ugh.
just like nostalgia feeling. Oh my God. I'm literally like almost crying.
Well, for everyone who's tuning in, I'm James from season 32 of The Amazing Race.
And I'm Cayla from season 33 of The Amazing Race.
Season 37 premieres 1 week from today on CBS. I am so excited to talk about what we know so far with you, Cayla.
Yeah, because there's a lot to talk about. For those of you who have been living under a rock, this season, we have a lot to talk about this season. I cannot wait.
This is the biggest cast we've ever seen. 14 teams. That already seems like a handful for the crew to have to like deal with and keep track of. But these teams look awesome just from the little that we do know already. But I miss when they released like pre-interviews with the teams because there's really just not a lot of material out there for us to really kind of get a vibe for who these teams are.
Yeah, like this is straight up like we're talking high school. These people walk into the room and we're immediately judging them. Okay. We have
That's a good way of
nothing
putting
to
it.
go off of other than photos. Like, I mean, even the best of my sleuthing, I'm like, there's like really not a lot of media out there. So, first, just a little disclosure for all of you listeners, this is not an inside scoop by any means. Like, this is truly just James and I. This is our take on it as,
Yes.
we sit on the couch for another year as we watch all these new racers, which we're so excited to join the family.
So let's just jump right into these teams, starting with Alyssa and Josiah. They are married nurse anesthetists. As Phil says, they're very in love, very compatible. There's something pretty special about the two of them as far as their connection. Both very fit. Alyssa played D1 soccer. She's been an athlete, more of an athlete than Josiah is. And she's also, as Josiah says himself, smarter than him. So she's got a lot going on for her, but regardless, he's also a lovely guy. The two of them are the sort of happy-go-lucky, very compatible you want. They're not a team that you're going to expect to see fireworks between. They're very much about, well, what do you think? What should we do? But they're good communicators and they're going to do well just because of the fact that they really, really adore each other and they get on. What Phil's just saying in general, already to me on paper makes them seem like a very strong team going into this season.
I love that Alyssa played D1 soccer because I grew up. So, like, I'm already like rooting for her personally. They just look like a strong team.
Yeah. And they also, like Phil was saying, they just look like a really lovely couple.
They're giving, just like this says happy go lucky. That in itself is such a great trait for the race because that means
Yes.
you're very adaptable and you're not going to
Yeah.
like get down in the dumps if something, doesn't go your way.
And also
So,
being good communicators is obviously very important on The Amazing
duh.
Race. Like I just feel like they're a team that Will and I would have loved to just get to know and have raced with. So I'm excited to see how they do. I can definitely see them going far.
I was going to say they're in my top
Like, with
three
that
for
energy.
sure. Like team number one out the gate, like top three.
Our next team is one of the all-female teams, Bernie and Kerrigan. They are friends. And Phil says, here we've got a couple of short fuses. Definitely, if the tension goes up, you're going to see some emotion. We enjoyed having them on the show for sure, but they are almost the antithesis as far as Alyssa and Josiah go. They wear their emotions on their sleeves and they don't hold back. They let it out and they let it out with each other. I love all-female teams, as you know, Cayla. I would love to see them do well. However, just based on what Phil is saying, I do have some concerns that if they can't kind of like rein it in a little bit in terms of the emotions of the race, because they do get really high and heated, if they
Mm-hmm.
don't kind of rein that in, could that short fuse fizzle out really early?
Yes. The answer is yes, James. I mean, let's just not even avoid it. I'm literally just hearing like they let it out and they let it out with each other. I'm like, this is giving drama already. And honestly, these are the teams that I love to see on the race though. They bring a little spice. Emotions get high, like really high, and a lot of them are not positive emotions.
That's
So yeah, this is
so
giving drama and I'm here for it. I just hope that at the end, like at least they had fun doing it.
yeah, and
But
the
yeah,
race is a learning curve, so maybe like the first like leg or two, they get it out of their system, and then maybe they find their rhythm. I mean, they look strong as hell. Like,
yeah, they do.
Bernie
Like
is a
if they were
personal
like the
trainer.
all girl team stacked up next to Raquel and I'd be like, oh damn, like there's like to me they look like they would beat us. Like they look fierce as hell. That's a compliment, ladies. Like I'm rooting for you for sure.
Yeah.
Let's let the emotions run high for the viewers and give us some drama and some spice.
Yes.
But I hope it's like, hot jokes on you guys. We pushed through it and, we're just giving you a little something to entertain you.
That was perfectly said. So we'll just end on that note with Bernie and Kerrigan. Up next, and of course, I may be a little biased, are Brett and Mark, married Vegas performers. Phil says, look, if there's a dancing competition, anything to do with movement strength, expect to see them do very well. They pick up things really quickly. How could they not when you consider Brett is working with Cirque du Soleil and Mark being a dancer? So any of those types of challenges are going to be easy for them, both very compatible. But I would say Mark is not scared to speak his mind. He does so throughout the season. He likes to just call things as they are. And there's a few games that go on, a few social games that go on this season. And Mark definitely doesn't hold back from just saying it like he sees it in a good way. It makes it interesting. So the reason why I say like I might be biased is I have known Mark for 15 years. I go way back with him. We actually performed together at Universal Studios and I got to know him and his twin brother very well. And one of the things we really bonded over was just our love for The Amazing Race. And we talked about how one day we were going to be on it. So when I found out Mark was going to be on, I freaked out because I'm like, wow, full circle moment. 15 years later, from talking about this on the back lot at Universal to like 15 years later, now we both have lived out this dream. I'm just so excited. Could they be any cuter? Like, come on, they might be giving Will and I a run for our money.
I was going to say, and the award to most attractive Amazing Race team this season goes to Brett and Mark. Congratulations.
Truly. And I do think like they're gonna bring it. They're gonna be very competitive. I won't be surprised to see them do really, really well. I think just from what Phil's saying here, I wouldn't be surprised if they go far because Phil says throughout the season. So I do think that they could be a strong contender. And in terms of social games that go on, I live for that stuff. So
I was just about to say, not Phil giving away social games. I'm like, we're literally talking to the king of social games right now, Mr. James.
But my curiosity will be, will it be them part of the social games, or is Mark specifically going to see the social games being had and say,
and call it
hell
out?
no.
I mean, I'm down for either. I love a person that speaks their mind. So I'm very intrigued by Phil's comment about Mark, and I'm very intrigued about this team as well. Hopefully I'm not going to like catch myself putting too many teams in the top 3, but like I'm looking at this team and I'm thinking top 3.
I want to see them succeed and I want to see them win. Only time will tell, but I'm just so proud and I'm so excited to see these two. Our next team is Carson and Jack, game streamers. And of course, we love our gamers. Phil says, very good, very strategic. We'll see how they get on with the more physical side of things. They admit that they like to be inside and play games, but I think they underestimate their physical fitness. I think they're fitter than they probably think they are. They're still definitely compatible, but great friends, a lot of smiles, a lot of laughs, emotional, but a lot of laughs. I like to see when teams have a really good time. They're definitely out for a good time. I mean, just from that little description, I'm like, okay, Will and I were emotional. We had a lot of laughs. We had a good time. So like, are they going to be a strong team? Are they going to surprise people?
Phil saying a lot of laughs multiple times, I immediately felt relatable to them because I felt like Raquel and I were just giggling our way through. That was our way of handling one, conflict, two, moments of despair where we're like, this sucks, or like we're really struggling. Like we just kind of giggled through it. And I think that kind of helped us, honestly, not put too much pressure on ourselves. So I'm looking at them and they might not look physically the strongest, but again, gamers are dangerous in games.
They're not
like
to be underestimated. That's for sure.
In a race like this, especially with plots and twists and turns, which we'll talk about later. But I don't know. It's giving Raquel and Cayla to me, the lots of laughs. I feel very relatable to them already. I hope that they laugh their way to the end. I'll just say that.
Yeah, they seem like a really good time. I have loved following these two on social media, and they're just going to bring the energy. And I think when it comes to the other teams, I think the other teams are really going to underestimate them, so much so that I can actually see Carson and Jack kind of like, I don't want to say skate their way through the race, because I don't mean that in a negative way, but I think in terms of being on other teams' radars, they're not going to. So that's going to be like smooth for them in terms of any twists or surprises that
Yep.
Phil and this race course is going to throw at the teams this season.
It could be their secret weapon. Yeah.
Yes.
Slide by. Like you said, that's not a negative thing.
Nope.
Get to
Nope.
the end. I don't care how.
Cannot wait to see how they do. And hopefully they do bring a little bit of their game and strategic prowess to the show. I would love to see that. Our next team is Team Yellow, dating nurses, Courtney and Jasmine, two people who, this is what Phil said, two people who knew each other for a while and didn't really realize that they were as compatible as they were, and then ended up together. I don't want to say it was a surprise to both of them, but I think when they first met initially, they didn't necessarily see themselves as a couple, just really good friends. And then they became this couple, and now they're together, very compatible, smart, obviously so good at working things out. It's so fun to line them all up at the beginning of the show and to address and look around. And they had probably the biggest smiles on their face before we started. They were super excited. Love these two already. And I think that what Phil is saying in terms of kind of like the evolution of their love, I think it's going to actually make them a really strong team, because sometimes the best relationships start from really good friendships.
100%.
And they're going to know each other really well in terms of strengths, in terms of weaknesses. And if Phil's saying that they're going to be good at working things out, then already they're a strong team, because if you're able to work things out in the heat of the moment, you're going to do well.
Oh, 100%. And the fact that they had the biggest smiles on their face before they started, no wonder they're Team Yellow. They're just bright. It's giving sunshine. It's giving happiness.
Yes.
But no, again, just a table off of what you said. Like, again, the best relationships often start off as friendships, like the slow burn. I mean, the race can be a slow burn. It takes some time to adjust and get used to it and get comfortable with it. They are a team that I feel like is perfectly compatible to the race. Yeah. Now let's just see if they have the competitive element to it as well.
Ooh, okay.
That's going to be what I'd like to see from this team, is like the competitive element. Like, do they have that?
Our next team is a father-daughter duo. It's Ernest and Bridget. Phil says, this reminds me of in a different way, but if you remember going back to Ron and Christina, that dynamic of a father and daughter, where the father or the parent has taken a leadership role and been in charge of the child most of the time that they have been together. And then all of a sudden they're out on The Amazing Race. And it's sort of like, okay, do you see me as an equal? Will you listen to me if I want to do things a different way? Can we do things my way if I feel like they are the best way? So this is a fun thing. Ernest definitely sees Bridget as his little bubblegum, as he calls her, as his little girl. So it's just really interesting to see what happens to them on the race, where he kind of realizes, well, she's not so much a little girl as a young woman. I love the throwback in the reference of Ron and Christina, one of the more iconic, like, intergenerational teams that we've had on the show.
Right.
And I remember Ron and Christina definitely had some fireworks between the two of them because of that dynamic, and Ron kind of surrendering control to Christina at times. But they still made it to the top 3.
Again, this tests relationships. You guys are equals, not the younger and the elder. Like, you guys are equals in this race. Right. So, but they look strong. Like, he's 59, but he looks younger than that to me. Like, he looks fit.
He does. And they definitely seem like they have a fun dynamic too, just from like the little preview. Bridget's doing this like little rap in the back of a taxi, and they're just like having fun together. And so if they can keep that kind of momentum, they could go far into the race like Ron and Christina. And part of me wonders if Phil is referencing Ron and Christina here for a reason. Like, is this like a little Easter egg for what to expect?
Oh.
Hopefully.
Maybe.
I want to be pleasantly surprised.
I know. Honestly, maybe, because I'm like, wow, Ron and Christina, that like kind of like took me back for a second. I was like, wait, who are they again? I had to like, and I'm like, oh, duh. But no, that could be a little Easter egg. Phil dropping his.
Our next team are siblings, Han and Holden from Los Gatos, California. They delivered in a way that was different from what I expected because they're brother and sister, but there's a lot of rivalry. And I really thought that there might be more conflict between them where they were sort of struggling. Han is definitely more of the dominant one in the team dynamic. She takes more of a leadership role, but what you end up seeing is this really cool brother sister relationship. They're way more competitive and compatible than I anticipated them to be, and way older, way more mature than I thought at times. Take someone like Holden. He's 22 years old. He's a wise old soul. Even though he's young, he's sort of a wise old soul. I like them as a team and they're fun to watch. Well, it seems like Phil has given his stamp of approval for these two. So I'm excited to watch. I feel like sibling dynamics make the race interesting. And especially if he's saying that Holden kind of has this like wise old soul, I would love to kind of see that come out and have him be the older brother, even though he's not, to Han sometimes.
Right. I'm just looking at him and I'm like, he's not giving wise old soul. He's giving like surfer bro, you know? So like,
Yeah.
I guess I'm just excited to see like a personality that isn't obviously the first thing that I'm getting when I just look at a picture, you know? Like, that's
Right.
why it's so hard to do these team evaluations without any pre-media or pre-interview where like you get a vibe for their personality. Like, we're literally just going off of a photo and what Phil said. And yeah, I mean, he's giving surfer bro to me. So I'm like, ooh, wise old soul. And how Phil thought that there would be more conflict between them, but then there wasn't. Like, that's giving this is a strong team.
But also, we all know sibling relationships aren't 100% perfect. So I'm sure we might see them butt heads from time to time,
Oh,
but
for
it's really the
sure.
recovery in those moments. How are they going to recover and overcome together? I
And
look
is this
forward.
a new color? Because I'm like, it's giving, is it lavender? Is it like,
Is it white? Is it lavender? Is it just
I'm
like
like,
an
these 14
ombre?
teams are introducing new colors on me. Like, what is this color? I don't hate it. I'm just like, what is this color?
Okay, I'm excited to talk about this next team because we're passing the baton, we're passing the torch, we're passing on the color of Team Purple to these sisters from Waco, Texas, Jackie and Lauren. Phil says, well, there's this great moment in episode 1 where they take on a physical challenge that they would never have taken on in their everyday life. And
Hell yes,
watching
ladies.
right? And watching the other day live in Atlanta with SCAD, the audience getting behind the two of them taking on this challenge and the way that they encourage each other and the way that they got through this challenge and achieved the challenge and stayed competitive in the first leg was very heartfelt. I think they're the team that the audience will feel something. I just got goosebumps, right?
I
Reading that.
know.
They created a lot of heartfelt moments. Ironically, their photograph, I think, making that heart together. This is a great sister relationship, and you can't beat it. They're like soulmates. I already love these two. Sure, they're Team Purple, but just like the energy that just radiates off this photo. And yeah, like the first thing that I see is that heart that they're doing together. They just seem so connected, and going into a race like that, it is so important. I love these two.
I know. I always feel bad because I feel like we probably are like repetitive. We're like, oh, Team Purple. We're always rooting for Team Purple. But I'm like, well, crap. I really mean it this time. But then I'm like, I meant it the last time and the time before that. But really, really this time, I'm like, girls. It's giving when Raquel and I chose to do the barrels and everyone was like, oh my God, don't do that one. But we did it and it looked badass. And I'm just super pumped because I don't know. I always root for the female teams, and the fact that they're Team Purple just gives me an extra little like boost to be like, oh yes, I love who got the purple team. You know, I love that Phil said that they will be the most relatable, or they're going to be the team that you're going to feel the most for, because sometimes, as much as it's important to win, at the end of the day, we're watching a TV show, and us on the couch, like, we want to feel something, right? We want to feel connected to some of, these players. And it's a weird age in reality TV where they constantly recast like new people that you might have seen on other shows or things like that. And so I'm just so excited. I'm like midway through these teams. I'm just so excited for all of them. It's such a great opportunity. I'm just getting so excited. I'm already getting emotional over you, Jackie and Lauren. I'm so excited.
I know, and I hope that we keep those emotions going all season long. Like, they're a team I want to see go far.
Correct.
I will be rooting rooting for them religiously. Our next team, which I think it was really interesting what Phil had to say about these two,
Yeah.
Jonathan and Anna, they're married parents from Pomona, California. Phil says this is one of the more interesting relationships, dynamic relationships that we've ever had. He would be the hardest on himself of anybody that I can think of who's ever been on the race. If he's not first, in his mind, he's eliminated. He's one of those competitors that second is basically the first loser. So he is really, really tough on himself. If he doesn't outright win and beat everybody, he beats up on himself pretty badly. So one of the things that I was trying to communicate to him was there's a lot of really competitive teams and you're not always going to get first. And so I think with them, they've got a lot of stuff to figure out. They've been on again and off again in their relationship for a while. So I think there's a lot of stuff that they've got to work through and that they did on the race. There's a lot of stuff that we see actually happen like that. We see the relationship changing between the two of them, and it starts off quite different from the way that it ends up at the end. It's an interesting relationship to watch. I think that was really interesting that Phil said that they're one of the more interesting relationships and dynamic relationships that the show's ever had. So already that makes me very intrigued. I'm sure there's going to be fireworks. I'm sure there's going to be kind of like a build up to hopefully like a beautiful moment of just like reconnection and rediscovery between the two of them. And more so for Jonathan is like, I hope that he learns from this race, no matter if he gets first, second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever placement these two ultimately get, that you're already a winner for even being on the show. Thousands of teams apply and you get to do this with your beautiful, stunning wife. She looks absolutely gorgeous. Like you're a winner already on paper. So
I'm
yeah.
like, okay, Phil with his eyebrow, is he giving like Dr. Phil a run for his money? Because this is very like, it's giving therapist, it's giving life coach, it's giving like, I don't know, a lot of insights to their relationship. And I'm like a little worried, you know?
Yes. I think there's like hope. There's like, light at the end of this tunnel with Phil saying, we see the relationship changing between the two of them. It starts off quite different from the way that it ends up at the end. So I'm hoping it starts off bumpy and it ends with this full circle, beautiful moment, maybe some self-realization and self-discoveries on Jonathan's end. And it just
like
makes
I'm
them
sure there's some sort of catalyst for them, that just like propels them hopefully further in the race and, likely further in their relationship. I can't get Dr. Phil out of my head. I'm like, that little caption was very Dr. Philly.
Dr. Phil's coming out on the race. Our next team are best friends and retired firefighters, Mark and Larry. Phil says, that whole thing, don't judge a book by its cover. Well, these two are quite emotional about their friendship, particularly Larry. You're going to see some tears when he talks about his friend and Mark being there for him as a friend. They're super close. When you see that kind of a friendship, it makes you think, do I have a friend that's as dedicated and as caring as they are for each other? Because they really do love each other. And one of my favorite things about them is their accents. They've got great accents, especially Larry's got a real strong one. I love hearing that because I do think like if you looked at all these teams, like I would probably be the first to say I'm probably judging, not in terms of like their capability on like the race, but I think more so in terms of like would I really get along with them. But based on what Phil's saying, I'm like, okay, they seem soft and they seem sensitive and like those are my people. And I think that if I were to be in a room with Mark and Larry, I'm sure we would be chatting up a storm. I love just hearing what Phil had to say.
Again, we're going strictly off of a photo. So what Phil says is extremely insightful. We're like trying to read between the lines. I want to hear these accents.
I know.
Like, I need to hear them like now.
I think also too, being retired firefighters, like they're going to be tough. They're never going to give up on a task and they're never going to give up on each other. And they seem like in the word firefighter, they're going to be fighters. Like I can see them fighting till the end if they get eliminated or if they make it to the final three. Like I see them really fighting till the end.
Perfectly said, literally. I could not have said that better myself.
The next team I'm very excited about, it's our mother-daughter duo, Melinda and Erica. Phil says, a lot of times people come in, they oversell themselves. They talk about how they're going to win. And I think I've told you before, the number one thing I hear at the mat is always, I had no idea this was going to be this hard. That's literally the number one thing I always hear. These two undersell themselves. As soon as they saw the other teams, they're like, oh, we're probably going to get crushed by these people. We're not going to be able to keep up. Erica is more positive about how they're going to do. And Melinda's being worried worried about whether she's going to be able to keep up with her daughter. So they're not the team that went into this race being like, we're going to crush it, we're going to win. They went into it more like, we want to be this and this as long as we can. We want to do the best that we can. Erica really tries to encourage her mother, but they surprise each other with just how well they did. And it makes for some great moments on the show and an interesting dynamic. Totally different from what I personally expected we were going to see from them. My mom was the first person I ever auditioned for this show with. So like I have a soft spot for the moms that do this show. And
Me
I think
too.
it's really
And I grew up watching The Amazing Race because of my mom. Like this was her show. She got me into it. So I'm a sucker for moms too.
if they're going to surprise each other, I'm sure they're going to surprise us as viewers too. So they could go all the way.
Oh, for sure. Like, I don't know. To me, it's funny that the moms are always like, oh, I'm so worried I'm not going to keep up with son or daughter or whoever it is. Like, I always remind people, Phil said this to us, and I imagine he says it to every season of teams as well. The race can be won walking. You just have to be extremely efficient in your roadblocks, in your detours. In this season, it looks like there's going to be a little bit more things they need to be efficient in. Obviously, efficient in your navigation. And it's not always just running to the plane or running to a taxi. Like, I feel like with age comes wisdom, and Phil touches on that later too. But it's like, I don't know, like you guys could complement each other so well. So it's so funny how all the moms kind of go into it with that mindset and that worry. Just for future racers, every single partner is worried about letting down their partner. Like age, gender, all of it aside, like everyone doesn't want to let down their partner. So you're in a lot more of an equal playing field than you think. I don't know. I feel like they look like a strong team to me.
Maybe they'll be our first mother-daughter duos to win the Amazing Race.
That would be huge. Like, I wouldn't be shocked. Like, literally looking at them, I'm like, I can see it.
Well, another team that I'm actually really excited to watch because they're big fans of the show who have applied multiple times are the brothers, Nick and Mike from Brooklyn, New York. Phil even says they literally have been trying to get on the show for 7 years. And they're one of my all-time favorite teams. Like Phil's like really like that's a huge honor, stamp of approval to be one of his all-time favorite teams.
Yeah, boys, you need to cut this out, frame it. Like that quote, I would faint.
Just because they have such a genuine desire and passion to be on The Amazing Race, and they never gave up. They just stuck with it. They just kept coming back at us. There's something about brotherly love in these two. They just make you smile. They really genuinely care about each other. They're just so excited about being on the race after 7 years of trying. So already, these are my people. You know, I applied 9 times. And so to be able to hear this already about these two who've spent years applying, I'm just so excited to see their dream come to fruition. Phil also says there's this moment in the first episode where they're driving and they just say to each other, oh my God, this is really happening. We're on The Amazing Race. They can't quite believe it, but it's a really wonderful lesson for those people who say, oh yeah, I tried to get on The Amazing Race once. I sent in an application. Well, I'm like, you got to keep trying. These guys really do prove that once is not enough. Sometimes you got to just keep going and keep going. And in the end, they won us over and they got a great sense of humor about it too. I am all in on these two and I cannot wait to watch them live out their dream.
Me too. Like I think everyone who's been on the race has had that, oh my God, wait, we're on The Amazing Race moment. Like every team has had it, whether they said it out loud or not. But what a truly like euphoric feeling when you've applied 7 times. I was one of those. I applied a lot. It's so funny. And I feel like they don't talk about that enough. Like applying once is not enough. It's just not. You know, some people get lucky. Raquel and I will say got lucky. I had applied for Big Brother 4 times and gotten like pretty far and around Amazing Race. I always said I was going to submit a video and then I never did. But it's just like, I don't know. How can you not root for a team with this backstory already?
From one superfan to another, I cannot wait to see these two.
They're going to make the most of it. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're in the top 3 either.
One of the teams that I feel like really stands out are Jeff and Jeff, aka Pops and Jeff. They're lumberjacks, they're father-son. And Phil says little Jeff is just so proud of his father. They're both in the same business. The physical strength these guys have would have been perfect for Tough as Nails. Of course, Phil plugs that. Pops is 65 65. You do not see 65-year-olds in this kind of condition. And those builds are from work, hard work. And there's a challenge early on where Pops crushes it just using the arms at the beginning. At the starting line of the premiere, I was so taken aback by the size of their biceps. I said to Pops, how did you get your legs onto your arms like that? They're distracting. And little Jeff's arms are even bigger, but Pops, his arms are more cut and they literally look like they managed to get their legs on their arms somehow. I know if I was lined up on this season with everyone, this would be a team that would scare me.
Oh,
They,
100%.
I bet they are going to kick my ass.
It's giving physical domination. I mean,
Yes.
they're both lumberjacks.
Phil's not lying. Pop's arm is like popping out of the screen practically.
I know. They're like the team that like I'm scared of them, but I'd be like, okay, well maybe like if they're giving nice, like they're the team to like keep in your back pocket to help you physically and like, you know, things. Cause again, like Phil already dropped a little hint, like social gaming, you know, if someone's lacking in the physical side, like the gamers, you know, maybe they team up with these two, like to help with the physical stuff. Like, I don't know, but all I can say is like Jaw was on the floor. I would be petrified to be lined up with this team.
I don't know what more to say about these two because
I'm not worried about them. I'll say that. Like I think they're gonna do fine. We'll see how they do with, I guess, navigation.
Yes.
I mean, obviously that's the one thing that out the gate can really stump a physical team because sometimes they're like, oh, it's just brute strength. There's nothing going on up here. But I mean, I don't know. I'm not getting, you know, just dumb from these two. Like it's giving physical threat. It's giving mental threat. They have like the age wisdom on their side. Like
they look prepared.
This is like a triple threat right here. The Jeff
team triple threat without a doubt.
Yeah.
This finally brings us to our last and final team to round out the 14 teams competing on this season of the race. It's Scott and Lori, Team Pink, are married parents from Salt Lake City, Utah. They're parents of 8 sons, which is insanity. Phil says, well, they are parents of 8 sons. As Lori says, the house never smells good. You can imagine when Scott and then 8 boys come home from sports or whatever. There's just a lot of sports equipment and a lot of washing. She says, I live with a bunch of smelly boys in the house. So I think for them, one of the big motivators is to just get away from the house, get away from the 8 boys. This is their chance to get out. I can't remember specifically, but I think it might have been one of the first times in a long time, if not since the last boy was born, that they've managed to get out of the house by themselves. So already this is going to be such like an amazing experience for these two. So for them,
sure. They're going to make the most of it.
They're getting out. They're getting out. And then Phil continues to say, so for them, this is about, all right, we don't have to worry about the boys for a few weeks. Let's just go around the world and travel there. There's interesting in the sense that there is a moment with them on the show where there's a bit of tension with some of the other teams. Ooh, which will be revealed in one of the surprises that we have. So they do get in the thick of it with the other teams. Let's just say that. Maybe surprisingly, this is going to be the team that brings the drama, and maybe they're going to be a polarizing team with not only their fellow teams, but maybe viewers as well.
Listen, I'm saying if Lori can survive in a house with 8 boys and her husband, that's 9 boys. I feel like Lori ain't taking no crap, you know?
No.
Like, I'm thinking she wears the pants and, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm obviously just making an assumption, Scott. Nothing against you. I'm just like, holy crap, 8 boys? Yeah. This woman is already impressive as it is. Again,
that sounds exhausting.
People,
8 boys.
That's insane. I mean, I feel like Salt Lake City, anyone that comes out of there is always great TV. I'm like really into Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. I was into like the Mormon Wives thing. You know, it's like it's giving that a little bit in a good way. I don't know. And yeah, Phil sprinkling like the spice. I have a feeling they're gonna bring a lot of entertainment to the race this year.
If they cause tensions with the other teams, will they be on the receiving end of any of these surprises? And is that going to set them back a little bit? Are they going to be more focused on maybe creating memorable moments on the show than they are about winning? I mean, I just have a lot of question marks around these two, but I'm excited to watch. I mean, I love when teams kind of ruffle feathers because it makes it interesting. interesting.
But they look so stinking cute. Like, I'm definitely rooting for them, like, on all levels. But, like,
Yes.
I'm also just excited for the teams that are going to bring the entertainment.
Please. Like, that's why, like, they're
If
going to
I
be.
can't race, I want to be entertained.
Yes, exactly. Well, that wraps up our 14 teams competing on this season of The Amazing Race.
That was a lot. That was a
A
lot of
lot,
teams.
a lot. If you could pick your top 3, Cayla, that you think are going to go all the way, what 3 teams would you pick?
Alyssa and Josiah, Nick and Mike. I feel like Brett and Mark, but then I'm also torn with Jackie and Lauren. I could go either way with Jackie and Lauren. Like, I get blinded by like Team Purple, and just like when I see like a team that I just feel like they're like exuding energy and I want to root for them, I'm like, I want to be right about it. So I don't want to be on like the wrong side of counting them out. So yeah, I don't know. I guess that's not really answering you. That's like my top 4.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to hear your top 3.
Solid. I'm definitely going with the brothers, Nick and
Okay.
Mike. I actually am going to say maybe Scott and Lori.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think they might surprise us. Maybe they're not in it for a long time, but they're probably going to be in it for a fun time. But maybe they're going to be in it for both. Who knows? I'm going to go with Scott and Lori and Han and Holden.
I was just about to say, I almost regret not putting Han and Holden maybe in Jackie and Lauren's place.
But then like Alyssa and Josiah, like, oh, they seem like amazing. And then of course, I obviously would pick Mark and Brett, but I was trying not to. I was taking like the blinders of like, I know them. So of course they're in my top 3. I mean, as Phil has said in a lot of the preseason interviews, this is going to be a season of surprises. Starting off with what Phil said in a Parade article, this is unique to the season because, let's be honest, the show is a show of surprises, period. Every time a team rips open and reads an envelope, it's a surprise. They don't know where they're going, they don't know what they're doing, but it was making more of a point, okay, here's a specific surprise for you. It was just about trying to catch people off guard. But one of those surprises for the season is the fork in the road, and I have a video clip of him talking about it with TV Line. So let's take a look.
So this season, we are putting a surprise, some kind of twist in every single episode of this season of The Amazing Race with 14 teams, which we've never had before. You're going to see a few jaws dropping throughout the season because people are like, wait, what? And that starts right off in episode 1 where we have a thing called the fork in the road. I'll leave it to your imagination as to what that actually means. Imagine you get to a fork in the road. What might happen? You can either go this direction or that direction.
I don't know about you, Cayla, but I'm so excited for this fork in the road twist. It sounds so intriguing.
I guess I just have so many questions. Like, you know, the racer in me is like, wait, I need all the information before I know how I feel about this. But all I'm saying is I hope it lives up to the intrigue. And yeah, I don't know. I'm like really excited. Like, I haven't been this excited for a season of the race basically since my own, you know, like I just am like, what is it?
Yeah, I really am looking forward to how the fork in the road is going to impact the race, especially because it's happening in the first episode. So the official press release from CBS says, host Phil Kogan sends 14 teams, the largest cast ever, on the journey of a lifetime. At their first destination, Hong Kong, teams encounter their first surprise twist of the season where they confront the inaugural fork in the road, forcing them to choose which direction and route they want to take to the pit stop, which creates 2 parallel races where 2 teams will be eliminated. So,
oh my God, so it is. Like, they're each, you get to pick, but I wonder if they're going to limit how many can go to each one, because that is a big difference. If it's not even, if you pick the route that the least amount of teams go on, you're at a higher risk of going home.
Well, I think there might be a little tease of that in some of these press photos. I mean, here's the teams at the starting line. That's a gorgeous shot. But here we are at the fork in the road board. You see Pops and Jeff, and Alyssa and Josiah. If you look at the fork in the road board, it does look like this fork in the road divides the cast in half. It looks like there's 7 slots on one side, 7 on the other. So
I see that now. I just counted. So it looks like they're going to max it out at 7 going one way and 7 going the other.
Genius design. Like I'm obsessed with that. It does make you have a little bit more of a reason to get to this board early, because you don't want to
Yes.
get there last and then be screwed with the
And then have
final
no
comment.
choice, and then you're just the choice is made for you.
Right. So great design. I think this twist, just from these photos alone and just from what we're discovering in our theories here, I think it'll live up to the hype.
I actually love this because my fear would be again like a group mentality of like everyone sticking together and going one direction. But I like that this forces it. It's like, no, you will be split up. You have to pick one way or the other, and there's only so many spots. Ooh, I love it. I already love it.
And then it looks like teams. Oh, look at, there's Han and Holden, and then Bernie and Kerrigan ripping open their clues. And then I think just from these photos alone, it looks like already teams are going to have to face some kind of like performance task before heading to the pit stop in Hong Kong. So yeah, I just think with how they're already promoting this being a season of surprises, I'm really excited to kind of see what that entails. But more so, I mean, and this is not a dig at season 36 cast, because I love a lot of the teams from last season. But I think because of how the season was so linear throughout, you know, in some ways very predictable, I think it was very smart from like the production side with 37 to make it a season of surprises, where I think as viewers, we're going to be in for a surprise as well. And hopefully it won't be so predictable.
I like seeing a power shift when I watch a race. That's nothing against a strong team that continuously wins. It's just when it becomes predictable, that's when it becomes not necessarily boring. Like, I never think that the race is boring. I want to see more, you know, teams get tested and thrown off. And then like, I don't know. I do like to see a power shift selfishly. So this fork in the road almost creates that. And so now it makes sense that there were 14 teams if 2 go home out the gate.
So not only will we see the fork in the road, according to Deadline in the article, it says that as a season of surprises, we will feature game-changing twists in every episode, including the classic fast forward and the U-turn, and the addition of new ones such as fork in the road. So we're just pulling out
throwing it all at you.
all of them. And I think even in the press release for the next episode, it already says for episode 2, it's already talking about intersection where 2 teams are forced to work together on a task. So I cannot wait. And I'm just glad that this wasn't my season, because that would have been scary.
I know. I'm like, it's so funny because when I was on the race, I was glad there wasn't a U-turn just because I was so scared of getting U-turned. However, I will say it over and over again. I love U-turns. I don't know why there isn't one every single season. I almost wish that there were one multiple times throughout the season, because it's just that would have thrown off season 36. It's like, I'm sorry, but if you did not U-turn Ricky and Cesar, granted, I could see them also crushing a U-turn and still staying in it. They were that good.
But it would have shaken it up.
Exactly. And it's like, also, it's on the teams. It's on the other teams. And if they don't U-turn Ricky and Cesar, you know, to where, I don't know. I love a power shift. And again, it's just like when you and I went to an elimination in the challenge, like it creates an opportunity for you to just, one, prove that you are one of the best and deserve to still be in. And 2, like, I don't know, it just gives you that extra little fire to like keep going, because like Phil said, everyone says it on the mat, like, I did not expect it to be this hard. So I'm glad it's not my season, but I think this one is going to be even harder than, or possibly the hardest season yet.
Agreed. And hopefully, like, we hope Fork in the Road lives up to its hype. I hope this season lives up to its hype, because
me too.
We need like a good season, and I think this has all the potential to be that.
I agree.
So before we wrap things up, let's just get a little preview of the season and what's to come.
Let's see it.
I cannot believe this is real life.
My logical brain just shut down.
We're gunning for first.
Do not even.
Claws are out.
Don't you give up.
Is everybody ready to race?
We're on the amazing race!
We're doing it.
This season, there are more surprises than ever before.
These seasons of surprises will give you a heart attack.
This is the first time, the first ever Amazing Race first. Big surprise.
We have no idea what's coming next. like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Now home, doggy dog, why are you looking at me?
Doesn't matter how many no's you get. All it takes is one yes.
I don't lose.
Sounds like trouble in paradise.
You have to force things to go well. You're amazing, Alyssa. You okay, Alyssa?
Let's go, babe.
The Amazing Race. New season begins CBS Wednesday, March 5th and streaming on Paramount Plus.
I'm so excited. I cannot wait. Kayla, is there anything else you would like to say about this season before we wrap it up?
No, I am just so excited. And like you said, I hope it lives up to its hype. It has every full potential to do that. I'm excited to welcome all these racers to the family. Again, we did not have much to go off of. It is strictly your photos and
So
Phil's
please don't take
insights,
anything
so
personally.
I'm just ready. I'm ready for the first episode.
Same. And I am so excited to be recapping with you again, Kayla. I always love talking about The Amazing Race and reality TV with you in general. I also just love you. So it's always
I love
great
you
to see
more.
you.
I'm excited to see your face every week.
And everyone else will be back every week recapping every episode throughout season 37. So thanks for checking into the Pit Stop, and we'll see you next week after the premiere. Bye, everyone.
See you then.